focus of today's training is going to be on adult learning principles. And so I have a few handouts for you, but like I said, for the most part, we're going to be using the books for some of the specific lessons. And what I'm hoping is that what you're going to learn today is going to help you engage the client and so increase that retention. You know, we can't fill their heads if they're not sitting in that chair. So it's important that we're able to create an environment and teach in such a manner that they like coming to class. They like coming to get the material. And I think what's really important for us to remember is that we're not teaching to fill their heads with knowledge, but to change behaviors. And so we're going to talk about that today. This is one of those, for those of you who've been through my trainings, we're going to do a lot of the same stuff, but this time you're actually stepping behind the scenes, if you will. I'm going to teach you how to do it. I'm going to teach, what we're going to do is you're not only going to participate, you're actually going to learn how you would actually do it yourself in your classes. Okay, so to begin with, on your tables there should be some card stock that I turned upside down. If each of you would grab one of those, please. And in your the little green boxes on your table, there's different colored pens. You're welcome to use those. Go ahead and fold it in half like this. And this will be your name tent. On the blank side, go ahead and write your name. And on the other side, I'd like you to think about 1 to 3 things that you're hoping that you're going to be able to learn. Something that you want to walk away with after spending 2 days together. What would you like to have learned or gotten more proficient in, if possible? So take the next 5 minutes, and after you've put your name down, go ahead and write those. And when you set it back down, set with your name tag actually out. Okay, go ahead and share with your table mates, and one of you is going to share the answers for the group. So you better listen. So go ahead and share with each other what some of the things are. You may find some of you want the same thing, maybe some different things. Take a few minutes to do that. Okay, now you guys get to share, so we get to hear what everybody in the room is looking forward to. And the person who will share from your table will be the person, count up the letters on your name card. Whoever has the most letters will be your spokesperson. Sabrina, why don't you start with your table? What are some things you guys are looking forward to learning?
To be able to process CBT and solution-focused approach in an effective manner, to improve how to facilitate, to learn from others' experiences, and how they're doing what they're doing in their agencies.
Okay.
To learn how to assist clients to decrease resistance, and one I like the best is to read the material and implement it.
Very good. Very good.
Also, how to engage clients in a group setting, when to let clients facilitate discussions among themselves, how to be more effective as a facilitator, and how to use our time as the facilitator more effectively. And I like what you said in the beginning, so how to get clients to fill those seats. And access to more handouts, more interactive material for the client.
Good. And all the stuff you've mentioned, we will be going through between today and next week. So just about everything there. And as far as learning about each other, one of the reasons I have you at small tables, and this is what I recommend when you're running groups, is because it allows for a little bit easier interaction to take place as opposed to one big circle. What you're going to get in one big circle is all the extroverts talking and the introverts letting them do it. When you have a small table like this, it's kind of hard to sit there and not say anything. And so what happens is you begin to engage your introverts a little bit more. I choose spokespersons. I use a variety of ways to do that, and what it does is it allows opportunities for other people to engage. Sometimes the more you get to know your clients, sometimes you may need to manipulate that so that you're not always getting the extrovert speaking up. So you may need to change up your way of picking a spokesperson. Sometimes I do things like, okay, I need a volunteer from each table. So which one do you think is going to stand up, the extrovert or the introvert? Extrovert. And then I'm going to tell the extrovert, I'd like you to pick the person on your right side. They're going to be the spokesperson. So it engages that person without actually fronting them out. And so anyway, those are some of the different things we'll talk about as we go through today and next Friday. So excellent. Those were great. How about Fabiola? How about yours? What did you guys come up with?
Let's see. One of the first things, like Sabrina mentioned too, the points that you mentioned at the beginning, Anna, how to increase retention, how to help the people that are in your class or your setting and whatnot learn how to change behavior. Denise, some of the points she shared, help clients solve problems without violence.
That's always a good one to have in class.
Help understand how to work with both sides. One of the things that we were talking as we were putting our stuff together, how to be in the moment with both the victim, the perpetrator. How to remove yourself, kind of, and just be able to be there for both one and the other. How to work with victims, and what is it that you say? My own feelings about understanding one's feelings about domestic violence and whatnot, and different,
Okay. We'll talk a little bit about domestic violence today, but what I'm going to do is give you guys some other classes that I'm going to be teaching with the Alliance, and that will be specific on domestic violence, so you guys will be able to come to that. And it doesn't cost anything either. So, but as far as being able to engage and work with the clients, I think what I want you guys to feel comfortable with is to ask questions as we go along. There may be something we're doing that you're sitting there thinking, I've tried that with my client and this is how they responded. By all means, bring that up, because that's something that if we can address that issue today and you can walk away with maybe an answer to a problem a challenge that you're facing, that would be great. So by all means, feel free to bring that up too. So thanks, appreciate it. Okay, so did you guys decide, Javier or Ruben, who got the short stick? Okay.
All right, so what was some of the words that was bounced around was fun?
Fun?
Yes.
Yeah.
We would like to have some fun strategies, some ways of engaging the students, how to deal with some of the students that are, as they said in the front table, resistant. Because as you know, we work at Lerdo, and some of them come in, and as Mr. Sosa was saying, they vent. And
Yes.
they vent in ways that we're like, whoa, sometimes we're like, what do we do here? So, and I also heard from gentlemen here, what was number one? Hold on, sorry. The facilitating. He said how to communicate the facilitating, and whenever the students are, when do we let them lead the way?
Good.
And how do we pick up from there?
Excellent. We're going to talk about that. How feedback goes both ways. So it's about being able to engage with the clients and yet not letting them run the group. And I've sat in, have you all had that experience where you sit there and one person's like bogarting the group? Okay, that's part of our role as a facilitator, is to be able to wrestle that time away. Some strategies are sometimes just simply pulling them aside and saying, Joe, you have some really great ideas, and I know we all benefit from that, but I really need to hear from some of the other guys as well. And so could I ask you maybe just to kind of keep it down, maybe just, one comment every 10 minutes, just, so that I can have the other guys participate, because I need them to do that. It also is a sign of respect for the other men or the other people in your group. When you have somebody who doesn't want to be there, don't they just love it when somebody's bogarting all the time, because they don't have to do anything. They can just sit there and do their time. We don't want anybody doing time in our classes. We have good material, whatever we happen to be teaching. A lot of work has gone into putting those curriculums together, and we want to make sure everybody gets a chance to actually participate and get that good information for themselves, so they can walk away with behavior change. And so that's not going to happen when we only have one person talking. Yes?
And then the last thing I would like to add is I would like to also learn when there's over engagement. Because sometimes I have classes where the whole class wants to, do everything, and I'm like, well, I don't have enough time to do this.
Okay.
So strategies for that as well.
Very good. We will go through the book, and that was kind of brought up by the first table as well. When we're engaging with the client, we need to know our material. We need to have read it ahead of time. We need to know what it is. Therefore, we need to know where we're going. And the clients need to have that comfort and safety level that they know that we know where we're going with this material. I remember sometimes in our pilot project with the batterers program, and the guys were just really over-engaged, as you said. It was a very, I want to say it was lethality class. Hey, Brenda. And so it was just very intense material. They really had a lot of questions. They really wanted to learn. And I just finally said, guys, we're going to be here till midnight if we if we keep going. You have some really great questions, great responses, but we're going to have to bring it down because we are going to cover the questions you're bringing up. We just can't do it all tonight. And if I could give you a magic pill and have all 52 weeks in there, and you could just take it and know it, that'd be great, but we don't have that. So that's why we have 52 weeks, or that's why we have 16 weeks. However long your program is, you let them know we're going to address these issues, these things that you're concerned about. We just can't do it all tonight. And in fact, when I made that comment, one of the guys was like, well, that's okay, we can stay. Like, no, I don't think everybody wants to stay till midnight tonight, so I'm going to call that one. But yes, but that's a good thing too. That means that they are engaged. They are, they are thinking. They are. So you want to praise that, but you also want to control it, and you want to be able to say, we'll get there, but we're just not going to get there tonight. So excellent points. By the way, you guys, because you work in the jail, as we go through some of the material, feel free to, if I forget to ask, my intention is to ask how you would modify it in a restricted setting. And I know Garden Pathways is also at the jail now. So there are times, some of the activities we're going to do, this isn't a perfect world. But when I was at the maximum security prison, I didn't get to do as much activity simply because that would probably make the guards really nervous if I had all the guys running around doing different things like I'm going to do with you. So we do want to talk about those modifications so that everybody has something they can take away with. So very good. Thanks. Anything else from your table? We're good.
We're good.
Okay. Excellent. How about the back table? Who got the?
Me, I did.
Hannah.
We all came up with better facilitation. A couple of us to deliver the material with ease, a little more easily,
Okay.
depending on the setting. And I think as an agency, better facilitation tips so that we can develop our own best practices, that kind of thing.
Great.
Engaging resistant clients, participants, and retaining them through better interaction. Preparation came up, going over preparing for lessons, things like that. And I think that's it.
You got him?
Yeah.
Okay, good. As far as getting ready for your classes, one of the things that I did, I had the benefit of actually designing the curriculum, so I would go through, and picture in my head what that was going to look like, how much time that activity might take. But one of the things I did, and it's even for me as a designer of it, and I knew it, I still highlighted key points. I put time frames next to how long I was, even for today. I train all the time. I have a fairly good flow of, sense of timing, but not always. And one of the things that helps me is just simply putting the time frame on the side of the paper. That tells me if I've got more time, if they want to engage, hey, we're ahead 10 minutes. I can let them engage for 10 minutes. If we're behind, I know I need to look for an opening to stop the conversation. And we don't want to do it abruptly, but we want to look for that opening where we can segue into, boy, that's a really great point, brings me to what we're going to talk about next. And that's just a way to segue into your material. So one of the things you might do is just simply give yourself some cues on the paper, on the curriculum, whatever you're using, to be able to know whether you're coming along to be able to get to your material. Your material is important. People can sit and talk out in the yard, especially for those who are working in the institutions. Those guys can talk in the yard all week. But you have them for that 2-hour period or hour, however long your class is, and that is the time you are there to be able to honor their time with the material that you have. And so that might be a strategy to consider. And I'm actually, when we're done here, I'm going to hand you out some a facilitator grade sheet. So that'll help with what you were just talking about too, about having that best practices. So excellent, thanks. Anything else from your table? You good? Okay. Okay, who got chosen here? Looks like Marissa.
We had similar learning outcomes like the rest of the tables. Some of the things that we had was to create a safe, secure, and welcoming environment, being able to facilitate, engage, motivate, CBT approach, tools and techniques, and then more knowledge on the subject material at hand, how to stop violent behaviors, the batterer's perspective, and also the victim's perspective. So.
Perfect. Good. Good. One of the things that you'll notice in the facilitator manual, in fact, go ahead and grab your facilitator manual. Here we go. Go to page 58. That would be phase 2, week 12. And what you'll notice actually, I'm sorry, go to page 60. What you were just talking about, you guys, several of you have brought it up about the material, knowing we essentially need to become subject matter experts. You know, we need to know what we're talking about, because while we may have all this great material here, there may be a question we don't know. And it's okay to say you don't know, but you'll find out for them. But ahead of time, what I've done on all of the lessons, you'll notice a little asterisk in the middle of the line. And below it are all the helps. So it talks about the handouts. It talks about, like it says, full versions are in the participant handbook. And then perception activities, it talks about what you need to know, why you're teaching that, what the purpose of it is. And go ahead and turn the page, and there's more information that actually goes through that lesson. And it gives you specifically how to teach that lesson. Go to page 75. What you'll notice, and I'm actually going to put these on the website so you can actually click on them and have them. There are actually website addresses that you can actually go to and learn more about that particular subject. So, and a lot of that, even if you're not able to get on my website, you can just simply, click on the keywords, and it will give you some of those websites. So, I try to include some helps to help you become that subject matter expert. Some areas we're really knowledgeable about, and others it's just we don't have a whole lot of, like when I was doing sleep and stress, those kind of things, I went on the website and found other websites that talked about those subjects. And what it did is it filled me with some additional information so that I could share that with the group. Especially in the institutions, they don't have access to the internet, I don't believe yet. So, and if they do, they're not going to tell you. So this is a way for you to be able to share that information. So very good. That was so. Any other thoughts or ideas from there?
No, I think we're good.
Got it? Okay. So again, that's a manual. It is actually designed to be able to give you more information on each of the lessons so that you can feel a little more comfortable with that material. Let's see. We're going to do one more thing here. I'm going to hand out this facilitator guide. This is what you guys get to do. Okay. This is something that actually can be done as a self-assessment, but what we're going to do is I'm going to have you use it to assess me today. So throughout the day, as you're looking at these key points, you're going to rate the work I've done, and you don't have to put your name on it. You can just make it anonymous. But 1 is not very well done, all the way up to 5, not applicable or not able to perform. So maybe it's not something that we actually got to today. But this is something that you guys will use for each other next week. So you can practice on me first, and then next week when we get together, part of your homework is going to include you doing a presentation, and your colleagues here will go ahead and use the same rating. So, okay, and then on the back it says strengths and areas to be improved. One of the things I've noticed in working with the groups is that when I give the men permission to give feedback to me on how things are working, it honors their time, but it also teaches them how to be able to give feedback, how to be able to give constructive criticism. Because we all need to have that kind of feedback, and hopefully we're all humble enough that we can accept that we're not perfect in everything. And there are some areas we still need to work on. So we will continue to talk about that, but this is your paper for the day, and when we do we're actually going to do a process group this afternoon when we end, and so you can turn these into me then, okay? Any thoughts or questions on this so far? Okay, just kind of glancing through it. One of the things you want to look at is behavior with the participants, which is a point that you guys brought up. Are you able to control the group's behavior? So in other words, when they start getting out of control or going off on rabbit trails, are you able to kind of pull that back in? Empathize with the participants. Empathizing is just simply being able to step inside their shoes and understand where they're coming from. I can understand how that would make you upset. But the choice you made to hit your partner, how did that work for you? You know, so you empathize with them, but you're also going to start challenging some of that behavior. Maintain neutral judgment. This can be a tough one sometimes when we're working with somebody who really has done something that we might consider really heinous, or you know, it would be really difficult to work with them. You still have to be neutral. You have to be this blank slate, if you will. Redirect the group. We talked about that, just being able to move them from that one subject they want to hang on to over to the material that you want to discuss. Providing positive reinforcement and providing corrective feedback, those errors in thinking. And I know we all see them. You know, it's like sometimes they'll say something and you'll just think, how did you get there? Where is that coming from? You know, yeah. So, and sometimes that just means we have to do a little digging. We need to listen a little bit more, but then we need to do some digging to figure out where is that attitude coming from. When I was at the prison, I had two different groups, and a morning group and an afternoon group. And one of them, well, for both of them, we were doing a lesson on using the soft startup, John Gottman's soft startup. You know, I feel I need. So anyway, I'm discussing it with them, and I gave them a scenario where their partner, they gave their partner money to pay the rent, and when they got home, they found out their partner had gone shopping, and that's all I gave them. And the first group, we were able to get to, okay, what did she do? And then I was finally able to explain, well, what happened was the kids came home from school and they'd been jumped and their school uniforms were ripped up. And CPS said, if your kids aren't in school, we're going to take your kids. And she figured, you know, she can't take them to school without their uniform, so she went and used the rent money to buy their school uniform. I couldn't even get to the rest of that scenario with one group. They were so, as you said, over-engaged. They were really just upset, and she was disrespectful. They were just so negative. And finally, we had to stop group, and the next week I came back and I said, how many of you have been homeless because somebody didn't pay the rent and you ended up out on the street? And almost all the hands went up. Now I understood the emotion behind their anger and their inability to even move to the next step of that exercise. So sometimes we have to ask ourselves, okay, we need to dig a little bit, we need to figure out what was going on there. So that's part of that empathy. It's also part of providing corrective. That was an error in thinking, for them. They just were not able to get past the fact, because that was such an intense experience for them, I couldn't even get them to intellectually move on to the exercise, which was to ask for more information. Maybe you don't have all the facts when you're making this decision. So again, those are some things we'll talk about today as we go through the material. How do we help? And you guys will help each other, because I know a lot of you run groups. You'll be able to help each other as well on doing that. Okay, so that just kind of gives you a start on that group skills exercise. So here's what I would like you to do at this point. We're going to set up some group rules, because I think it's important for all groups to be able to be on the same page, to be able to agree and say what's appropriate, what isn't. So I'm going to have you guys do that. And you have about 5 minutes, so go ahead. You have in your boxes, there should be a little notepad if you don't have extra paper. And you're welcome to use the notepad and write down some ideas that you all think are important to do and not to do. So the do's and don'ts of our group today. So go ahead and take a few minutes on that. Okay, have you got some group rules for us? Now, your spokesperson for the table this time will be the person to the left of whoever spoke last time. Okay, let's see. Where should we start? Why don't we start in the back there? Okay, just give me two, and then we'll go around the table.
To be on time and to be supportive of one another.
Okay. And very good. How about two from you guys, Ruben?
Okay, we did do's and don'ts.
Great.
So I'm going to give you one of each.
Perfect.
So the first one, that way we don't do ask questions.
Okay.
And no cross-talking.
No cross-talking. Do we all know what cross-talking is? How would we define cross-talking?
When, like, if you're saying something and people are over here talking, or if there's they just interrupt everything.
Excellent.
That's what I consider cross-talking in a group.
What is, how does that impact the group when there's cross-talking? What does it say about the value of the person who's actually talking?
It's disrespectful.
It's disrespectful, yeah. As facilitators, we want to facilitate in a room with people knowing, modeling what respect looks like. So that's one of the things we want to, and the beauty of it is, by you coming up with it instead of me telling you no cross-talking, are you more likely to follow it if you're all in agreement as opposed to me being the authority figure telling you what to do? Okay, so excellent. Thank you for bringing that up. How about you guys? Who'd we, Denise?
Yes. Do talk to each other.
Okay.
Do take each other's points into consideration. Sorry.
Okay, so consider.
And don't be negative.
Okay, so no negativity. Now, excuse my spelling, it's not always the best up here. On the negativity, are there some things that you guys thought about, an example or a situation where you thought,
Well, where people say something and then you try to quiet them down instead of listening to them because you think it's off topic.
okay, very good. And depending on the type of group you're running, you may end up with people that have decided they're going to facilitate the room and decide what's on topic and what isn't. So again, we have to have a little bit of that authoritative stance so that they know we'll call something when it's not on topic. If they see us let somebody just run away with the class, that's what's going to draw those folks out. That's going to draw the fixers out. The ones that, okay, you the facilitator are not fixing the problem here in the room, so I'm going to do it for you. So, and have you seen that happen in groups sometimes?
Definitely.
Yeah. So they need to have that faith that we're going to take care of those things. So, and when we say things like, well, that's a little bit off of what we're talking about. It's a really good point, but it's not really where we're going to go today. Can you just hold that thought? And we'll come back to that subject later on in one of the classes. And I think that would be a really good time to talk about. So there's a way you can, maneuver that. So excellent point. Very excellent point. Okay, so where are we here? Saul?
We have attentive listening.
What was that?
Attentive listening.
Attentive listening. Okay, good. You guys are.
And also, don't miss to do your homework.
Say that again.
Don't miss to do your homework.
Don't miss to do your homework. Okay. So this is probably one of the hardest ones to do. You guys won't miss the homework because otherwise you'll be standing up here not knowing what to do for your 10 minutes. So I know you'll do your homework. But one of the things that we want to consider when we're giving people homework is giving them feedback. If we don't let them know we got their homework, we've acknowledged it, they're getting some feedback, they're going to think it's really not a big deal. You're just giving them busy work. So it's important. In our check-ins, we do talk about the homework. Sometimes when we did the pilot group, I would make calls during the week about their homework. Wow, you had some really good responses on that class, on that particular question. And what it does is it just reinforces for them that it does matter and it does help. So excellent, thank you. How about you guys?
Do give feedback.
Okay. Good.
And don't interrupt others.
Good. Kind of a little bit of that disrespect like we were talking about with the cross-talking? Yeah. Okay, very good. Now, how about some others that we didn't get? Do you guys have any more to add to the list?
No foul language.
No foul language.
Don't judge others.
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't judge anyone. That's
No
good.
judging.
Q-tip.
Cute. Okay. Does everybody know what Q-tip is? Probably not, huh? It's one of the lessons that we teach in the batterers program. It's quit taking it personal. And that has been one of the tools they have absolutely loved and constantly give us feedback on. In fact, when they graduate, we give them a relationship survival bag that includes different little props from the class, from the 52 weeks, and one of them is a Q-tip to remember, quit taking it personal. So many times we get into arguments with folks simply because they said something and we took it personal, and it had nothing to do with us. And so it's a real cute little saying for them, and we'll hear them say it in group. And in fact, one of the men in group talked about being in a restaurant prior to coming to group, and there was this older man who probably looked like he'd been drinking and just really sour-faced, and he was mad dogging him. And this is a guy who's done a lot of time in prison, so that's kind of a sensitive spot when somebody's just glaring at you in public. And finally, but he says, "Sir, is there a problem?" And he says, "You look like my son." And he says, "F my son." And he said he just yelled out, "Q-tip!" He just walked away from this man. And that was what kept him from fighting this man. And then once he did that, it calmed him down enough that he could look and see this was a man in a lot of pain. A very depressed man. He'd been drinking. He obviously had a poor relationship with his son. So he could get the focus off of himself onto this person simply with that one little phrase that just reminded him, and it calmed that brain. We're going to do the anger section later today, and we're going to talk about in anger, our brain is on one side or the other. It's on the thinking side or the emotional side. And so we'll talk some more about that. But Q-tip is a really good way to get it back over to the intellectual side. Yes, Ruben?
We didn't talk about this, but I think it's important that this be approached at the beginning of the group, before you start the group every day. I mean, in a general way, say this is what we do here. I do that with my classes, even if it
Excellent.
only takes a couple of minutes.
Uh-huh.
This is what this group is about. Because some people come in and they have no idea what's going on. They're just in for to find out what.
Yeah, what they've heard out in the yard.
Yeah.
What Ruben's talking about is in his particular group, it changes every day. And you bring up a really good point. What I would recommend is that if you we had closed enrollment, so once it was closed, we all knew what the group rules were. But when you have open enrollment and you have people coming in on a regular basis, it's a good idea to think about doing this type of lesson, as you said, just real quick and easy, but take 5-10 minutes at the beginning of class. Acknowledge the fact that we have some new people who've joined us. We're about, a third of the group is new. So I think it's time for us to kind of all make sure we're on the same page as far as group rules. So again, you have them work together, just like you all have done here, and have them come up with these group rules. In our closed group, I actually wrote this on a flip chart, and we actually had it typed and laminated, and it actually is on the wall as they come in and sign in. So that's something, and it's another way too. You can say these are the group rules the prior participants have come up with. How do these work for you? Anything you want to add or want to change? So excellent point. When you have an ongoing group, it's a really good idea just every day, because I imagine what you found is that you have a lot more control over the group. Yeah.
Well, the first way it came up was profanity, because they're so used to it.
Yes.
And if you don't let them know ahead of time, right at the beginning, they'll come in and they'll start. And the others are going, well, what are you going to do about it?
Yes, exactly. They want to
you're
see.
in the spot.
Uh-huh.
See. So it's better to let them know ahead of time. A few things, like for us, the bathroom is a huge deal. A bathroom break. I mean, we're talking really huge.
Yeah.
So we have to.
That's why we do Maslow. We talk
Yes.
about those basic needs.
Yes. So we have to talk about them right away and let them know this is a rule for the bathroom, so you guys know. And then they're okay. But if they don't know,
Exactly.
10 minutes or 15 minutes, right in the middle of something, one of them says, "Can I go to the bathroom?" Now you're in a fix because you're in something.
Very good. And that's what, as facilitators, we want to anticipate what are going to be some of the issues that are going to come up in our group, so that we can kind of head them off at the pass. So like what you've done is decided, let's do the group rules real quick and short, sweet in the beginning. Everybody's on the same page. Now we don't get the interruptions. And if they do, they know they're getting the wrath of the rest of the group because it's already been discussed. Yeah, very good. Any other ones on here? Okay, how about cell phones? Are we all okay with cell phones being turned down or at least in the stun position? So we're not getting all the musical effects of the cell phone? Okay.
What
Say that?
Have fun.
Have fun. Love it.
You stole it from me.
Excellent. Don't we want to have fun when we go to a group?
Yeah.
Yeah, nobody wants to sit there and just like, oh my God. Especially if you have a lot of work piling up on your desk while you're at training. Isn't that the worst, you know? It's like, you are boring me and I have work going on. It's piling up while I'm here. So absolutely, we want to have fun. And hopefully that will be your experience through today as well. Any others?
Just have a
Right.
quick question. I know that you've gone with group rules. Is there a difference in, say, we're going to have a group agreements, or as opposed to like a contract, having a group covenant where I'm going to maintain this with you, and you're going to maintain this with me? Kind of getting off the rules part.
Okay, very good.
If folks have a problem.
Sometimes we need to look at how words can actually impact the group. And you're right, for some, the rules is just kind of a turnoff. So that's a good strategy to simply ask, you know, we all kind of want to be on the same page. Is that, now covenant is a great word, but for somebody who doesn't know what that word means or doesn't engage, you know, maybe in the Christian community or something, they don't understand what that word means, then we might have to be careful that we need to bring something, you know, bring it to their level. So, but what you brought up is an excellent point. You want to be able to use a language that doesn't turn them off from the get-go. I know for me, when we did we did a measurement study, because I basically did research on this program when I was at the prison, and then did it again when we did our pilot project. And I just called it, you know, tests. Well, one of the other facilitators, she said, you know, for some people that just like freaks them out, just the word test, you know, so you might want to call it like surveys or something. So we went through and I'm like, okay, whatever, you know, but it was a really good point, because for some people, tests don't bother me, but other people just have just an automatic shutdown when they see the word test. Like there's a right and wrong answer, and this is not a right and wrong answer, so survey actually made more sense. So very good, I'm glad you brought that up. We want to be conscious of the words we're using and how loaded they can be sometimes. Any other thoughts on this? Okay. One of the things I did that I would encourage you to consider is you have an idea in your head of what you want, what's acceptable, what isn't. Like you mentioned the profanity, you know, the bathroom breaks, that kind of thing. What I did is I asked your permission if we could add this. That's just a strategy that allows them to still be engaged. They didn't really, you know, this wasn't something that you had on your list maybe, but it was something that was important to me, because I know when it happens in our meeting together, you know, it can be a problem. So that's why I brought it up. You're going to have those same things. That would be a strategy I would recommend, is you just simply ask them, would that work for you guys if we add this? And then also going around, because when we're brainstorming, we come up with certain ideas and then we hear from each other and we come up with something else. We think of something else. I noticed that happen with some of you. It was like, oh yeah, and what about this? And what about that? You know. So, okay. Any other thoughts on this group rules? All right, let me just kind of recap what we've done and how you might use it as a facilitator. When we did the welcome and introductions, that is something that you can use when you want to get help the group to blend, to start to get to know each other. If I had not done that, of course, fortunately, you all kind of sat with each other, you know each other. Some people who've been through my training know that I tend to mix the groups up. And so what happens then is you're sitting with people you don't know. When we have folks coming to our group and they don't know each other, it decreases some of the learning. Whereas when you get them to introduce themselves to each other, get to know each other a little bit more, you actually enhance the learning opportunity. What the men would tell me is even when they took breaks, and if you do have formal break times, not so much in the jail, but in the outline programs, those are actually opportunities for them to actually do even more discussion with each other and more learning. So I would highly encourage the breaks. But one of the things you want to do is get the group to start to know each other very quickly. And this is one way to do it. You put them in small groups, and then you also give them opportunities to have to learn each other's name and to actually start to engage in conversation with each other. When I had you write down some ideas about what you expect and are hoping to learn over these next 2 days, what that does is increases your anticipation about what we're going to learn. Did you notice that? That all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, she's actually, because is there any time where you're in a group and you're like, oh my God, I think I got in the wrong room. This isn't what I wanted to learn. This was what I was here for. So what it does is it increases your anticipation. When we're working with our groups, we want them to consider what they're going to learn. It's not about doing time. It's about you investing yourself into this process and figuring out what is it you want to learn, what's important to you. So with that question, it also allows us to assess their readiness to change. And I gave you a little handout just for, I actually do a specific training on readiness to change, motivational interviewing, but just to kind of give you the stages there. If you had a client and you got their answers back and you said, okay, what do you want to learn while you're in this 52-week program? You know, why are you here? What's in it for you? And they say, just to get my probation officer or my wife off my back. What stage readiness to change level do you think they're at?
Pre-contemplative.
Pre-contemplative. They do not have a problem. It's everybody else's problem. It is not theirs. What that does is it allows you to understand where they're coming from mentally, okay? You're not going to give them an action plan because they're not there yet. You understand that that they're just there to do time. And it's okay. Great. We're glad you're here. When you finish 52 weeks, both those people should be off your back. So that sounds like we'll be able to help you meet that goal. Okay, what if they say, I just need to learn how to control my anger and not scare my partner when I get mad? What stage do you think they might be at there?
They're thinking about it.
Definitely. Preparation. Mm-hmm. They're actually taking steps to actually be able to make that change. So again, just simply based on what they say, you can do that little assessment in your head. Okay, this is where they're at. If you haven't had training on that, usually most of my training is by request. So if your agencies want to put on the training, then I'll do that. But that is, it's important to understand that everybody comes into group at a different place, especially with the groups we're running. And so that's why when we're engaging them in that cognitive behavioral intervention, solution focused, what we're simply trying to do is move them through those stages. Move them from, I don't have a problem, to, well, maybe I do have a problem. Oh, well, maybe I can take these steps and actually get them through that whole area. Okay, on the group rules, one of the things you also do with group rules is you create problem-solving opportunities. They need to learn how to brainstorm and think about other options besides just, well, everybody just shut up and don't talk when it's not your turn. We want to move them into actually thinking about how to solve that problem. And it also shows a value for their input. So when you're engaging them and asking for their input on what the rules are, you no longer become the authority figure. You become on the journey with them. And that allows for them to be a lot more engaged and a lot less resist. That's just a simple way of reducing some of the resistance. They got to have some input into how the group is going to run. Okay, any thoughts or questions on that so far? Okay, so you guys have now learned how to engage group rules, how to get the client just simply to consider what they might want to learn, what they might want to get out of the class in a very non-confrontive way.